it may be time to reconsider if it's a healthy space to remain in. Communication is the foundation of any healthy relationship. When one person builds a wall instead of a bridge, they are not just avoiding a conversation, they are denying the other person their basic right to be heard. Gaslighting. Gaslighting is one of the most insidious forms of psychological manipulation. It isn't just about lying or twisting facts. It's about systematically dismantling someone's ability to trust their own mind. A gaslighter distorts reality so skillfully that their victim begins to doubt their own memory, perception, and even sanity. It starts subtly. A comment like, "That never happened," or "You're overreacting," may seem harmless at first, but over time, these small denials accumulate. The victim begins to second-guess their experiences, unsure of what they saw, heard, or felt. Eventually, they defer to the manipulator's version of events, believing that their own recollection must be flawed. Gaslighters thrive on control. Their goal is to destabilize their target, making them question their own judgment so that they rely entirely on the gaslighter's narrative. The more confused and disoriented the victim becomes, the easier they are to manipulate. A gaslighter doesn't need to tell an outright lie to achieve this. Sometimes, all it takes is consistent denial or trivialization of the victim's concerns. When confronted with a problem, they might simply say, "You're too sensitive," or "You're making a big deal out of nothing." These phrases work by dismissing the victim's emotions, making them feel irrational for even bringing it up. Another tactic is shifting the blame. If the victim accuses the gaslighter of wrongdoing, the response is often a deflection. "You're the one who's always causing problems," or "You're acting crazy." Instead of addressing the issue, they turn the tables and make the victim feel like the problem. This tactic is powerful because it puts the victim on the defensive, forcing them to prove their own sanity rather than holding the gaslighter accountable. Gaslighting also involves rewriting history. A gaslighter will confidently claim that events happen differently from how the victim remembers them, forcing them to doubt their own memory. They might insist, "I never said that," or "That's not how it happened at all." Even when presented with evidence, they refuse to acknowledge the truth. This constant reality distortion wears down the victim's ability to trust their own recollections. The long-term effects of gaslighting are devastating. Victims often experience anxiety, depression, low self-esteem, and a complete loss of self-trust. They become so accustomed to questioning their own reality that they feel paralyzed in decision-making, afraid that their perceptions are unreliable. Over time, they begin apologizing for things they didn't do, altering their behavior to avoid conflict, and seeking the gaslighter's approval just to feel a sense of normalcy. The only way to combat gaslighting is to trust in one's own reality. Keeping a record of events, such as journaling important conversations, can help establish a clear reference point when the gaslighter tries to twist the facts. Seeking validation from trusted friends and family members can also serve as a reality check. If multiple people confirm that an event happened as remembered, it reinforces the victim's trust in their own memory. Engaging with a gaslighter in endless arguments to prove what is true is a losing battle. They are not interested in the truth, only in control. The best response is to set firm boundaries, limit engagement, and, if possible, walk away entirely. Gaslighting is dangerous because it erodes a person's sense of self, but once recognized for what it is, its power weakens. A person who trusts their own mind and refuses to be drawn into the manipulator's web is beyond their control. Love bombing. Love bombing is manipulation disguised as romance. At first, it feels intoxicating. like the perfect relationship, like something out of a movie. The love bomber overwhelms their target with extravagant gestures, constant affection, and flattering words. They say all the right things, shower their partner with attention, and create an illusion of deep, intense connection. But underneath the surface, it isn't about love at all. It's about control. The relationship moves at an unnatural speed. Love bombers push for commitment early, saying things like, "I've never felt this way before," or "You're my soulmate." They make their target feel special, irreplaceable, like the center of their world. The affection is relentless. Text messages all day, surprise gifts, declarations of love within weeks. To the unsuspecting person, it feels magical, but it's a setup. Once the love bomber senses that their target is emotionally invested, they start pulling away. The texts slow down, the compliments stop, the affectionate gestures disappear. The person who once seemed devoted suddenly becomes cold and distant. The shift is subtle at first, but it leaves the victim confused and craving the attention they once received. This is where the real manipulation begins. The victim starts wondering if they did something wrong, desperately trying to get back to the honeymoon phase of the relationship. They might try harder to please the love bomber, walking on eggshells in an effort to regain their affection. This is exactly what the manipulator wants, an emotionally dependent partner who will do anything to win back their approval. The reason love bombing is so effective is because it creates an emotional addiction. The intense highs of early affection create a powerful bond, and when that affection is withdrawn, the victim experiences emotional withdrawal. Instead of seeing the relationship as toxic, they hold on to the memory of how good it used to be, believing that if they just try hard enough, they can bring back that version of their partner. Love bombing is not about love, it's about creating dependency. The manipulator conditions their target to accept mistreatment in exchange for occasional bursts of affection. The cycle keeps repeating. Moments of coldness are followed by brief returns to warmth, reinforcing the emotional addiction. The victim never knows what version of their partner they'll get, and this unpredictability keeps them trapped. The only way to escape love bombing is to recognize the pattern before getting pulled in too deep. Real love builds gradually, not in an overwhelming flood. Any relationship that moves too fast, where deep commitments are expected early on, should be approached with caution. A healthy partner respects boundaries and doesn't react with guilt or anger when the pace is slowed down. Consistency is another key indicator. If someone's affection dramatically fluctuates between extreme adoration and cold detachment, it's a sign of emotional manipulation, not genuine love. Seeking input from trusted friends and family can also help break the spell. Those outside the relationship can often see red flags more clearly than the person caught in the emotional whirlwind. Love bombers rely on their targets feeling isolated and dependent, so staying grounded in outside perspectives can be a lifeline. Love bombing is dangerous because it conditions people to accept mistreatment in exchange for temporary affection. But once the illusion is broken, its power fades. Love should be steady, secure, and real, not a manipulation game designed to keep someone trapped in emotional chaos. Guilt tripping is one of the most effective manipulation tactics because it exploits a person's natural sense of empathy and responsibility. It's a psychological trap where the manipulator makes someone feel guilty for something they shouldn't feel guilty about. By making the victim feel selfish, ungrateful, or neglectful, the guilt tripper ensures they get what they want without directly asking for it. It starts subtly. A simple sigh, a disappointed look, or a passive-aggressive comment like, "I guess I'll just do it myself," can be enough to trigger feelings of guilt in the target. The manipulator never explicitly states their demand. Instead, they let their victim come to the conclusion themselves that they need to make it up to the guilt tripper. Over time, this conditioning makes the victim feel like they're constantly failing the manipulator, even when they've done nothing wrong. A guilt tripper will often use past favors as leverage. If they once helped their victim in some way, they will continuously remind them of it, making the victim feel obligated to repay the debt, whether it's reasonable or not. They might say things like, "After everything I've done for you, this is how you treat me." Or, "I can't believe you'd say no after all the sacrifices I've made." These statements are designed to make the victim feel selfish, even if their refusal is completely justified. Another common guilt-tripping tactic is playing the victim. The manipulator exaggerates their suffering, making it seem as if their life is harder than anyone else's. They highlight their struggles while downplaying the struggles of others, reinforcing the idea that their pain is more important. They might say, "You have no idea how much I go through, and now you're making it worse." The victim, not wanting to appear insensitive, feels pressured to give in. Guilt tripping can also appear in family dynamics. A parent might say, "If you really loved me, you would call me more often." A partner might say, "If you cared about this relationship, you wouldn't act this way." These statements create a false equivalence between love and obedience, making the victim feel as if asserting their own needs means betraying the person they care about. Over time, repeated guilt tripping can cause severe emotional distress. The victim starts prioritizing the manipulator's happiness over their own well-being, afraid of being labeled as ungrateful, selfish, or unloving. They become accustomed to suppressing their own needs just to avoid the crushing weight of guilt. Breaking free from guilt tripping requires recognizing the pattern and understanding that guilt is being used as a weapon. Just because someone makes you feel guilty does not mean you have done something wrong. It is essential to set boundaries and not let emotional manipulation dictate decisions. Responses like, "I understand you're upset, but I'm not responsible for your emotions," or "I appreciate what you've done for me, but that doesn't mean I owe you everything," can help disarm the guilt tripper. Ultimately, guilt tripping works by taking advantage of a person's kindness. The best defense is self-awareness, knowing when guilt is legitimate and when it is being used as a tool for control. Genuine relationships are built on open communication and respect, not on manipulating others into compliance through guilt. Triangulation. Triangulation is a deeply manipulative tactic that involves bringing a third person into a conflict to create insecurity, jealousy, or division. The manipulator uses this third party, either real or imagined, to gain control over the victim, keep them off balance, and maintain dominance in a relationship. This tactic is particularly common in toxic romantic relationships, dysfunctional family dynamics, and toxic workplace environments. A triangulator thrives on comparison. They might say something like, "Unlike you, Sarah really understands me," or "John never gave me this much trouble." The purpose of these statements is to make the victim feel inadequate and compete for the manipulator's approval. By creating the illusion that someone else is doing a better job, the victim starts trying harder to please the manipulator, often at the expense of their own self-respect. In romantic relationships, triangulation is often used to create jealousy and insecurity. A manipulative partner might constantly bring up an ex, a coworker, or even a stranger, making their partner feel like they are in constant competition. They might say, "I wish you were more like them," or "So many people want me. You should appreciate me more." These statements are meant to make the victim feel threatened and desperate for validation, ensuring they stay emotionally dependent on the manipulator. Family members can also use triangulation to create division. A parent might tell one child, "Your sibling never gave me this kind of trouble," while telling the sibling the exact opposite. This creates resentment and rivalry between the children, preventing them from forming a strong bond. The parent remains in control by ensuring that neither child fully trusts the other, keeping their attention focused on winning the parent's approval instead of questioning the manipulative behavior. In workplaces, triangulation is used to create distrust among employees. A toxic boss might tell one employee, "I don't think John is as loyal as you," while telling John, "Sarah doesn't work as hard as you do." By playing both sides against each other, the boss keeps employees from uniting against them and ensures that everyone is too busy competing to challenge their authority.
Get your free copy of my new
toxic aspects of triangulation is that it creates invisible enemies. Sometimes the third party doesn't even exist. The manipulator fabricates stories about what others have said or done to control the victim. They might say, "Everyone thinks you're being difficult," or "People have told me they're worried about your behavior." This tactic isolates the victim, making them feel like they have no allies and must depend on the manipulator for validation and reassurance. The long-term effects of triangulation are emotionally devastating. Victims often develop low self-esteem, anxiety, and trust issues as they are constantly forced to compete for approval or defend themselves against false accusations. They begin to doubt their own worth and may struggle to form healthy relationships because they've been conditioned to see others as threats rather than allies. Escaping triangulation requires recognizing that the manipulator is the real problem, not the third party they introduce. The moment someone tries to pit you against another person, step back and ask, "Why are they telling me this? And what do they gain from making me feel this way?" In most cases, the answer is control. Refusing to engage in the competition is the strongest defense. When a triangulator tries to stir jealousy or conflict, respond with indifference. If a partner says, "So many people want me," instead of reacting with insecurity, reply with, "Then go be with them." If a boss tries to create division, communicate directly with coworkers instead of relying on secondhand information. The key is to remove the manipulator's power by not playing their game. Triangulation thrives on secrecy and confusion. The more people communicate openly and refuse to be manipulated into unnecessary conflict, the weaker the tactic becomes. The best way to win against triangulation is to see through the illusion, refuse to compete, and recognize that the manipulator is the true problem, not the third party they use as a tool. Silent treatment. The silent treatment is a form of psychological punishment disguised as withdrawal. It's not just ignoring someone, it's deliberately shutting them out to manipulate their emotions, instill self-doubt, and exert control over them. The person using the silent treatment withholds communication, affection, and acknowledgement, leaving their target in a state of emotional limbo, unsure of what they did wrong or how to fix it.